A Real Housewives husband convicted. The Utah author mom's preliminary hearing. The allegations against Diddy. This week's episode is True Crime Headlines Special Edition. Sinisterhood. We are back in Texas. Thanks to everybody who came out to our West Coast shows last week. It was so good to meet you all in person.
Yeah, we had a blast. Great weather, even in the hot places. Y'all, there's something to be said about no humidity. It is a game changer.
We loved it so much, and that's not the last show. The very, very last show of the Full Moon Energy Tour is going to be in Dallas on October 17th. So get your tickets over at sinisterhood.com/live shows. Make sure you come to the final live performance.
It's everything you love about the show, but all centered around the moon. It's witchy stuff, what really happened on the Apollo missions, cryptids, crime, all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be probably the I don't want to say best, but biggest show of the whole tour. So come on out. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah, for sure. Like we said, go to sinisterhood.com/live shows and catch it. And it will be on the full moon that month. So it makes it extra energetic that day. But today we've got something different for y'all on the feed.
Yeah, we decided that there were so many headline updates that we might as well just put it on the main feed because they were so long. And it also gives you a little taste of what we do over on Patreon. Some of these are updates that we have previously updated over there. And then the last one, the biggest one, I think this is our first time really kind of diving into it.
It really is. Yeah, it's been in the headlines. I'm sure you all have been hearing clips here and there, but we read the indictment, listened to read the transcript of the bond hearing, and we will bring you all the details on the charges, the federal RICO charges against Sean Diddy Combs at the end of this episode. But the beginning, we're going to give you some updates on past cases. And like Christy said, we do this about once a month on True Crime Headlines over on the main feed with no ads for our $5 a month tier. And also in October, we've got a deal coming up. If you like what you hear, be sure to check out our Patreon annual subscription. If you join anytime between October 1st and the 31st, you get 16% off, which is basically like getting 2 months free. So might do a free trial from now until October 1st and then lock in that annual rate.
Stack them up. Get 2 months free during the, you can start it in the best month of the year, which is October, spooky season, right around the corner. Perfect timing.
The spookiest season of all.
Well, for now, I'm Christy.
I'm Heather.
And let's get into it. We previously discussed Erica Jane from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and her husband, disgraced personal injury lawyer Tom Girardi, in episodes 144 and 145. On August 27, 2024, the 85-year-old disbarred attorney was convicted by a Los Angeles federal jury on 4 counts of wire fraud. The charges stemmed from Girardi embezzling over $15 million from clients. He faces 80 years in prison. He's on the verge of clocking out, so I don't think he's going to see all 80 of those years if he even makes it to when that sentence starts. But good that he's finally seeing some repercussions for all the horrid things he did to these people.
Yeah, a reminder, if y'all didn't listen to episodes 144 and 145, he didn't just like embezzle funds from like businesses. He embezzled funds from people who were catastrophically injured, who really needed the money for surgeries. One person said he had to delay surgeries for several months. They needed to update their houses to make it more, accessible after the PG&E explosions in California, and just really unscrupulously staring people in the face and telling them, Alec Murdoch style, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to fight for your rights. And meanwhile, just had his hands in their pockets.
Fully knowing what he's doing, and just the phone calls that have been released of him saying these things to clients when we know what we know now is just disgusting. Erica filed for divorce from Tom in 2020, but that hasn't stopped the public scrutiny and questions about the extent to which she knew of his crimes. Erica denies any knowledge of Tom's crimes and has not faced any criminal charges. She has been sued civilly, but fights the lawsuits, vehemently denying any liability or knowledge.
And this has been huge for people that are fans of the show. Like, what did she know and when did she know it? And some clips, he seems like he's like stop it, Erica.
Mhm.
Like he was not like, I'm an open book, babe, whatever you want.
He seemed like an asshole, very controlling, and he definitely controlled their finances. As far as what all she knew, I really don't know. I think in these cases, you may have an inkling of something, but you really may turn a blind eye because you know you shouldn't know what's going on. Does that also make you complicit in a way? Or he really kept her so out of the knowledge of what was going on with their money that maybe she didn't.
I wonder if that's why he was like, yeah, go on Real Housewives. Yeah, go be a pop star. I'll fund your costumes and your choreographers to kind of distract her and get her away from him. Knowing he wasn't even paying the bills anyway. A large issue was her Amex card was getting paid off by client funds. Well, that Amex card was everyone was attacking her like it was her glam squad and it was her choreographers. Do you think maybe that would be a great thing for him to distract her with while he was meanwhile robbing all these people?
Mm-hmm. Regardless of what she knew, Erica is enmeshed in Tom's personal bankruptcy case. She could be responsible for debts incurred during her marriage, especially tax liabilities. Erica may be forced to file for bankruptcy due to the fallout from Tom's debts. She remains legally tied to him as well. The couple's divorce is stalled due to his conservatorship. It's unlikely to be resolved before his sentencing. Girardi will likely see jail time, as his health, including his dementia diagnosis, won't mitigate his sentencing. Before trial, the judge ruled his mental decline did not impact his ability to commit these crimes.
And that was their argument at first, was he had to go into this conservatorship because he had such bad dementia and was not aware of what was going on, which is why the divorce paused. But now the judge is like, I think you knew exactly what was going on and I'm going to send you to jail.
It is sad, but at the same time, like, you do the crime, you do the time. His health is in such decline, and he does have dementia now that it's going to be a rough ride for him in jail. It was interesting to me because usually people that are in the health that he are in, they don't make them go to jail, do they? They kind of just do an at-home thing.
Or do like a jail hospital, which I bet he'll probably go. I think it's in like Missouri, but there's like 1 or 2 federal penitentiaries that are not really jails. They're like giant hospitals, and it's for terminally ill or elderly convicted people like him. So that might be where he goes. But yeah, usually it would be like, oh, we could like house monitor him. Like he's not going to go run off. But the feds are like, nah, you did the crime, you do the time. You can do it in our hospital. If you need a hospital, that's fine.
Yeah. No, he's not running. I physically don't think he would be able to. But a jail hospital sounds like a good place for him.
For sure.
With this trial finished, Tom still faces federal wire fraud charges in Chicago related to the Lion Air crash victims, along with the pending prosecution of other former Girardi case lawyers Keith Griffin and David Lira, who were also targets in Los Angeles. The prosecution of the firm's CFO is also pending in LA.
So it's not like this is the end for this guy. He's going to get drug around to courtrooms for a while.
As are the fellow partners of his firm. There's no way he's doing all this and nobody knows what's going on. It's just impossible.
No, and especially the scale that he was doing it, where it like bankrupted the firm.
Yeah.
Like, some of them had to have noticed, and perhaps the allegation is that they were aware or were on the take or working with him, and that it's, how many more incidents are they going to uncover and then continue to charge him for things?
Yeah, it is like Murdoch in that sense that you start pulling at a little string and it all unravels. Girardi is scheduled to be sentenced on December 6th at a sentencing hearing and faces a statutory maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison for each count. Erica remains a castmate on the latest season of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
So we'll see how long he gets. They could give you 80 years, but probably, I don't know, 10, 20, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, he's in his 80s already. So I think, yeah. I mean, maybe he lives out the rest of his days in a hospital, like you said, while Erica's on Real Housewives getting that bag still. I haven't watched this season, so I don't know if she's been open about it or if she can't talk about some stuff because of like legal reasoning.
Yeah, I haven't watched it too much, but just the headlines I've seen, she doesn't seem to necessarily want to talk about it. But I think she is in the season 2 or 3 seasons ago when we were covering this, there was that whole scene where she and Kyle like went hiking and she was like, Erica was crying and like telling Kyle, like, you don't know what it's like. So I think she's definitely, as one would, if you know, like, I'm gonna have to work for the rest of my life. Like what I thought was like my marriage with multi-millions of dollars and I got to kind of work for fun. I got to really like have a brand. I would try to rehabilitate my image certainly and be like, I didn't know anything. And I hope I helped the victims. And also please buy my insert whatever book, record, you know, etc.
We covered this next case in the May 2023 minisode and TCHL updates since then. Kouri Richins stands accused of killing her husband, Eric, on March 4th, 2022, by poisoning his drink with fentanyl. Prosecutors allege she waited upstairs with their children while the drugs killed the 39-year-old father of 3. She wasn't arrested for over a year, giving her time to write and self-publish a children's book on grief and appear on a Utah morning show to promote it.
We linked the minisode and the TCHL updates in the episode description. The most recent update we did on this where we discussed the quote, walk the dog letter. I highly recommend folks listen to that because there's extensive incriminating evidence that she hand wrote in a letter to her mom. That's pretty damning. It's pretty damning.
It's almost embarrassing how just you didn't think that through. I mean, just being messy and sloppy, which is good because she should be caught and held accountable. The ability to poison your kid's father and then lay down with them and while you're getting them to sleep, fully knowing he is dying in the other room. I don't understand how somebody is capable of that, but she needs to be in prison for a super long time.
It's dark and scary, the extent to which that she put that facade on to write that children's book. There's footage of her on the news just being like, it was so hard to lose him. And especially using opioids where so many families are legitimately destroyed by opioid addiction. We're like, bitch, you're a murderer. And you go, well, it's really devastated our family too.
It'll be interesting to see if the person or persons that sold her the fentanyl gets charged as well, if she turns on that person.
Because she's been texting them.
Yeah. On August 27th, the preliminary hearing wrapped, where the court was tasked with determining whether there was sufficient probable cause to go to trial on all 11 of the counts she faces, including aggravated murder and attempted murder. The attempted murder charge relates to an incident on February 14th, 2022, when Eric Richins texted Kouri that he felt sick after eating a sandwich she brought home for him from a diner. Kouri later admitted to a friend she had given him the food that day. Text messages also revealed that Kouri obtained fentanyl just 2 days before the sandwich incident. She'd been trying to poison him for a while. And what was interesting is she just kept going back to the same well.
And texting all of it all the time. So much text message evidence. Like if you're going to get drugs with a phone, I'm not giving you advice, but like get a burner phone and pay cash for it at a place with no cameras so they can't find you. Like, what are you doing? To use your own physical phone to be like, dear friend, may I please have drugs from you? Like that's a felony that only, but not to mention obtaining the drugs for the purpose of killing someone. Like that's the action you took in the attempted murder and you left hard evidence of it in your phone.
Yeah, if I knew I was getting these drugs to commit murder, I certainly wouldn't be texting my dealer on my personal phone. When Eric texted her that he was feeling unwell on Valentine's Day 2022, Kouri coldly suggested that he take a nap to feel better. She then failed to check on him for over 2 hours. The prosecution alleged Kouri was with a man she was having an affair with while Eric was sick. When Eric survived this murder attempt, texts reveal Kouri reached back out to her drug connection, asking for
something stronger. What?
Yeah, I believe she likened it to like what Michael Jackson took.
Yes, yeah. Just really putting it out there of what you gave me didn't work for my purpose. And the facts are the purposes of her husband was very sick. So we can all connect the dots. Again, just blatant.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, he's a drug dealer or whoever it is. So, you know, take that for what you will. But you got to know why you're giving this to her, right? Like it seems pretty obvious it's not for her and that she's trying to kill her husband.
I was going to say, that's been the argument too. The defense has kind of said, oh, it could have been maybe she had an opioid problem. And it's like, well, there's zero evidence of her. And I would think a dealer interacting with her would know, like, oh, she's not taking it. But maybe I've never been a drug dealer, but maybe you're just like, hey, man, whatever you do with it after I sell it to you is not my problem.
Yeah, it's probably very much like that. Prosecutors argued that attempted murder was a precursor to the murder 17 days later. Kouri texted her paramour a few days before Eric's death, reassuring him,
things are about to change if you just hang on till Friday.
Friday was when Eric was found dead in the couple's home. Other texts show her wishing Eric
would just go away,
or that she could be rid of him. Divorce. Yeah. I every time I hear these things, I'm just like, divorce is so much easier. But if you divorce, then you don't get all that insurance money you're trying to collect.
Yeah, the greed is really egregious here. And we discussed in that prior update, it did not come up in the preliminary hearing, although I think it will come up at trial. The separate incident involving Kouri's mother and her mother's former partner, where the mother's former partner had life insurance policies taken out on them and then suddenly died of an opioid overdose. And Kouri's mom was the beneficiary. And the language in that walk the dog letter is like, hey, you remember how this works?
Remember when you did that? Well, I'm following in your footsteps. Mm-hmm. If that comes out to be hard truth, the fact that this mother and daughter have just killed both of their husbands for insurance money, it writes itself. I mean, it'll be all over every lifetime, everything.
Right. You just don't think that something like that happens in real life where you have sort of this Black Widow figure and then their daughter is like, oh, what a great idea. Allegedly, of course, all of this, they have not been convicted. But you're right. It's like, it does seem stranger than fiction. It's like, there's no way that happened twice in the same family.
And if you saw your mom do it and that she got away with it, and if that's also what she's willing to do, what was your upbringing like? What were the messages or just stuff you were seeing like that might have led to her thinking it was a good idea for her to follow in the same path? Mm-hmm. The state also brought in evidence of Kouri's financial motives, as she stood to inherit more if Eric was dead than if the couple divorced. Her failing house flipping business and rampant spending led to financial crimes she's been charged with as well. Kouri allegedly forged multiple documents for mortgage loans and life insurance policies she obtained without Eric's knowledge.
And he found out about a couple of these when he went to an estate planning attorney about 4 or 5 months before he was killed and had all of his assets put into a living trust that his children were the beneficiaries of. And if he was not alive, his sister was the trustee of, essentially taking all of the assets out of Kouri's hands. Well, as he was going through paperwork and documents, there was this like home equity loan that had his signature on it that he did not sign. And the attorney's like, wait a minute. So you took out this HELOC? And he's like, no, I didn't. So it's like, you're finding out that she's also, I think there was an email from the life insurance company that's like, hey, we finished your life insurance evaluation. And as you're the subject of the policy. And he's like, I did not take a policy out on myself. Like, these are eerie things that you're like, I got to get my ducks in a row because I might have to divorce this woman because she's dangerous.
I don't even think it's might. I mean, he knows, or he at least has a strong suspicion she tried to poison him. Mm-hmm. He survives that. Then he finds out all this information. Mm-hmm. Why? And I don't want to victim blame. It's just an honest question. I don't know why he didn't leave her, because it didn't seem that there was ongoing abuse, that she was abusing him or he was abusing her. It seemed like she was kind of putting on this facade, like they had a good marriage, and then he would find these things out. But there's so many red flags. It makes me sad that he didn't, or he wasn't able to leave, like when he started realizing this stuff. And then, because it was just a matter of time. If she's tried to kill you several times and it hasn't worked, she's going to keep doing it.
Yeah, and she was cheating as well, and she was spending way more money than she was bringing in. Her business was multiple levered. Like she was at risk of having to file for bankruptcy, which what the past case we just talked about, Tom and Erica, when your spouse is doing financial fraud, you can be drugged down into it as well. So you're right. It's hard to, in hindsight, go like, oh my gosh, like you were willing to take all of your assets and put them into a trust out of her hands. Like you don't trust her enough to administer your estate when you're dead. You shouldn't stay married to that person. But I think you have that long term, like we've all been, and we're trying to unlearn it of like, it's a broken home. You shouldn't get divorced, stay together for the kids. And it's really, really hard to, I think, unlearn that programming of like, it is better to have a disrupted home with two separate parents, because then at least the kids have two parents that are alive.
Yeah.
And it's tough now because the kids are living with their aunt because their mom's in jail after killing their,
Yeah, I mean, they really did lose both their parents. That's a good point, though, that he clearly knew something was up because he wasn't trying to leave her money. He knew that this money stuff was going on. So, yeah, sometimes we just don't want to see the truth because it's too hard and hurtful.
And they also had that prenup too. So it's like, there was clearly like these financial concerns. And sometimes it's like somebody's financial infidelity is enough to divorce them. Like they're lying to you and they're willing to do these things. And the really scary thing is when people get so financially entrenched, like I can't dig myself out of this hole, they get desperate and then they do things that are unimaginable, you'd think.
Yeah. The defense claimed the charges were
pure speculation
and argued Kouri could have been using the drugs for other reasons, suggesting she had an opioid addiction. They also said there were innocent explanations for the Valentine's Day incident, arguing that Kouri asked Eric via text if she should come home and said if she was there, she would cuddle him.
They sort of tried to paint it like, she cared about him. I'm like, she was fucking somebody else.
Yeah.
She killed him. She left to go be with her, or she thought she killed him, left to go be with her boyfriend. And now she's getting texts and she's like, just go lay down and take a nap. I think she told him to take a nap because she thought the drugs would take effect and kill him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then I'll come cuddle you. Almost like I went home to cuddle him. I found him dead in the bed.
And he said he didn't feel good on the phone.
Almost kind of setting it up in this even.
And just for 17 days later for that to happen again.
Yeah. After the prelim hearing, the judge found probable cause for all 11 charges, including aggravated murder and attempted murder. Her defense team acknowledged the preliminary hearing heavily favors the prosecution, but expressed confidence in the jury finding Kouri innocent during the trial. She will stand trial next spring, with jury selection set to begin on April 28th, and the trial set to wrap by May 22nd, 2025.
What jury would find her innocent?
No.
There's so much evidence.
No. She's not a likable character. First, so there's that you're already battling. And then, it's the writing is literally on the wall. It's not on the wall. It's in a letter to her mother and a bunch of text messages. And just like, you already tried to do it. Yeah, like you tried it a couple times and it didn't succeed. So that's what I'm saying. It's so stupid to keep going back to the same well because you're like, oh, how weird that fentanyl was found in his system. Oh, and then 2 weeks later it was found again. Like,
and
what do you
texted?
like
in that same time period to get the exact amount of fentanyl that was put in his drink. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah,
I think you're right though. It's really people do get so in debt in so many of these cases that we've covered that they really think the only way out of it, or at least the easiest solution at the time, is collect on an insurance policy without really thinking through that fully of you're going to get caught. There's like a 99% chance you're getting caught. And then what?
Yeah. And then, the life insurance policies will never go to you. None of the assets are going to go to you. And you will I think she'll spend the rest of her life in jail, just given the significant amount of evidence. But that's why we have a trial. And the preliminary hearing generally is the prosecution just putting forth evidence. The defense can rebut. But I don't think, even given this scenario we were in here that it was some sort of unfair thing for her. I think she has completely made her bed with all of her actions and behaviors. And the letter, trying to go, oh, it was a novel. I just was, making up these characters that had all the same names as people in my life that would be witnesses, telling them to do and say things that would help my case. Like you're grasping at straws, sister.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have May 22nd, 2025, Kouri Richins found guilty.
Yeah, I hope so. And like with other cases where it's the parent killing the parent, the real victims here are these kids. The only way I could see them not giving her life is because of the kids. But would the kids be better or worse? I don't think there's a good answer for that. It's just that's really sad for them.
It really is. I'm at least heartened that his sister seems to have, really stepped up. They're not like, in the system somewhere. They get to be with family. That's the best case scenario in a worst case scenario situation that they found themselves in.
Yeah. It's kind of like Karen Reed and her boyfriend, John, had taken in his niece and nephew when they lost both parents to two different accidents within like less than a year. And then those poor kids lost him too.
Lost their uncle too. Man. Sinisterhood will be right back. Let me guess, your medicine cabinet is crammed with stuff that doesn't work. You still aren't sleeping, you still hurt, you're still stressed out, and that's how it was for me. So I cleared out my cabinet and reset my health with CBD from CB Distillery.
CB Distillery's targeted formulations are made from the highest quality, clean ingredients. There's no fluff, no fillers. It's just pure, effective CBD solutions designed to help support your health.
In 2 non-clinical surveys, 81% of customers experienced more calm, 80% said CBD helped with pain after physical activity, and an impressive 90% said they slept better with CBD. If you struggle with a health concern and haven't found relief, make the change like I did to CB Distillery. I cannot recommend enough their nighttime gummies. They're wonderful. I tasted them. I was like, this is like a candy that I used to like, and I can't think of what it was.
Those are dangerous when you're like, I want to keep eating these.
I really want to take one. One does it though, and I don't feel like groggy in the morning. And that ooze stick, which is a relief stick, I jacked my hip running the other day, and I was, as my mother called it, a hitch in my giddy up. And the stick was a game changer. I'm not usually a topical person, but I loved how it wasn't greasy. It smelled good, and I felt like it really absorbed well.
It's great for travel too, or just throwing it in your bag or something. You can just roll it right on wherever.
Roll whenever.
With over 2 million customers and a solid 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is the source to trust. We have a 20% discount to get you started.
Visit cbdistillery.com and use code CREEPY for 20% off. That's cbdistillery.com with code CREEPY. cbdistillery.com. Sinisterhood will be right back.
Well, this next one has been in the news, TikToks. I mean, my whole feed is Jaguar, right? Just that's all my FYP is at this point. Well, Sean Combs, 54, also known as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, or Love, was arrested and charged with racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and interstate transportation for prostitution in an indictment unsealed on September 17th in Manhattan. He founded the Bad Boy record label in 1993 and has collaborated with some of the hottest names in entertainment like Usher, Will Smith, Mariah Carey, Lil' Kim, Justin Bieber, Jennifer Lopez, and more.
I think anybody that attended a white party from I think he had them from 98 to 2009 is just diarrheaing themselves.
Oh my God.
Panicking.
What I have recently learned, and this is speculation because all of this is to a degree. Usher is more complicit in this than we would all like to think.
Heartbreaking. As a child who memorized the USHERRAYMO, it seems like he has tried to distance himself of I didn't see any of that going on, or I'm not sure. But I think we're gonna hear more and more insiders. Tom Swope, he's like a music industry insider, has a YouTube channel, and he talked about the tiers of access at these parties and how he would be like at the low tier where like, yeah, you're drinking, people are making out, whatever. Well, then you kind of get tapped to go to the higher tier, and the higher tier up to the like inner sanctum where like the really horrible shit happens. And it's like, well, Usher's not in the low tier.
No.
J-Lo is not in the low tier. So it's like, it's known that this inner sanctum where Diddy's at is like the heinous place. Like, you were there, man. Like, come forward. Tell the feds what you know.
J-Lo is so complicit in, I mean, they were a couple for years. She was there the night he shot that poor woman in the face at the nightclub. Yes. In fact, her story is, or a story is, he handed her the gun and was like, put this in your bag. And she didn't argue about it. But she had gunshot residue on her hands that night. She wailed and cried because she didn't want to go to jail. But you're going to tell me you were with him for that long and you didn't see or participate in a bunch of stuff? I mean, you were clearly there the night he shot a woman in the face who still has shrapnel in her cheek from it. And she said for years this happened and no one would believe her. And then when all this shit started coming out, she went on TikTok and was like, I've been telling y'all for years that this motherfucker is the devil. And then we hear from his exes and other people. Justin Bieber, man, my heart goes out to him. I think he really, really, some fucked up stuff happened to him early in his career. And I think Usher was somehow involved in all of that.
Because he did sort of serve him. Usher sort of served Bieber to Diddy on a silver platter. Briefly on the shooting, when that all happened, Diddy's whole response was, I don't even own a gun. What?
Bitch, yes, you've got so many. You own multiple guns.
Are you kidding me? But yeah, on the Justin Bieber thing, it seems like I don't think he was a willing participant in any of this. And when you start to break down stuff, like people are breaking down like imagery in the Yummy music video of like metaphorically, he like sits down, Justin's happy to sit down. Well, they start serving like progressively more disgusting dishes. And then he like, everyone's dressed in white. It looks like a Diddy white party. And it's like, he's probably been trying to tell us for a long time, but somebody that undergoes all that, like it's on their time that they want to talk about it. If anything like that happened, and he's got a new baby and everything, but I hope he's healing from that. Cause there's a sadness in Bieb's eyes. And I think it was Diddy.
Really. I mean, the song Lonely is heartbreaking. And so many even acceptance speeches that he's have since been revealed, or there's a roast that he was a part of. And the stuff he's saying, knowing what you know now, when you hear it, he was definitely trying to tell people. And I think a lot of people were, but he was this mogul at the time. And, he and Biggie were coming up. They were the huge people. Nobody was going to argue with him.
Especially by the time he got a hold of Bieber. I mean, that was well beyond. He was like owned so many different businesses and was like truly like unstoppable, both financially and just like the person, the people that he surrounded himself with. The footage or the pictures from white parties look like a fever dream. It's like David Blaine doing a trick for Chevy Chase. Another one, it's like a cuddle with like Diddy's on one side with J-Lo and like Jay-Z's on the other. It's just, you can spot all these faces and stuff. So,
Jay-Z.
Yeah, he's part of it too.
Oh,
I think. TBD,
he is, some shit's going to come out because I'll tell you what, I don't think Jaguar Wright lies. Nobody sues her. She's never been sued for defamation, and neither is Cat Williams. And that makes me think it's because the people they're talking about know that they're telling the truth.
I would agree. They don't want to have Cat Williams or Jaguar Wright be like, and here are my receipts and all the people that are willing to talk and text messages I've gotten and things like that. Plus, there's just like the footage on TikTok, which I think TikTok and social media have helped public pressure be put on the Southern District in New York, the U.S. attorneys that are prosecuting this, because the footage of Justin Bieber when he's 15 and Diddy's got his arm around him going, he's mine for 48 hours. He's about to do things that every 15-year-old wishes he could. And we're like, what did you just admit to? Or the footage of Diddy with that young girl. And he's like, I've adopted her. She's my family now. Ava, come here. You're my child. So we see these things and go, even in context, that's inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. And then having the context you do now, that footage of him with Bieber for the weekend, it hurts to watch because you just think, what did happen over those 48
so
hours, you know? And I mean, he was 16,
He's
wanting
so
to get big in the music industry. Even people way older than that or do stuff to get ahead, because what I've learned, and not because of our job, but just all the shit that has been coming out over the past several years, the entertainment industry is so much more sinister than I ever really thought, and just incestuous. And there's really this inner sanctum of like core people that run it that are just untouchable. And if you find yourself up against them, you're fucked.
Yeah. Tiffany Red is a music producer, and she's friends with Cassie. And I think she wrote a song for Zendaya. She was on the Nightline Impact Hulu special about this a couple months ago. And she was like, she was speaking regarding Cassie, but I would say it extends to anybody, especially if you're in the music industry. She goes, what are you going to do? He has a key to the city. He's friends with politicians. Who's going to challenge him, and who's even going to believe him? Who's going to believe the victims when they know that Diddy has what we're about to talk about, which is a bunch of incriminating footage?
Yeah. The September 16th sealed indictment claims that since at least 2008, Combs led a criminal enterprise involved in a wide range of illegal activities, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Combs allegedly used his business empire to facilitate abuse. He is accused of sexually exploiting women, coercing them into days-long sexual activities with male sex workers, often across state lines, and events referred to as freak-offs. I have heard freak-offs more in the past 48 hours than I ever would have liked to have heard.
Yeah. I think this is going to be the pin of this whole case that I think will, the big net that's going to pull in other players of like, who was at the freak-offs?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of digital evidence. So
yeah,
he loved to film it. He also loved filming his filming himself doing all kinds of stuff, but in recording his own phone calls. But it's like these freak-offs, I think, are going to be the undoing of, I don't know if it's politicians, musicians, whatever, but I think he purposefully enticed people Epstein style to do nasty sexual stuff that they're nasty people for doing it. I don't think they're like innocent. I think they're idiots for getting filmed by Puff Daddy, and they're perverts for wanting to do it in the first place. But he knew what he was doing. I think he was like getting juiced up on drugs and being like, I'm going to do the most extreme things. And like, don't you want to do extreme things? No one will find out, Epstein style. And then he's like, what are you going to call the cops? Because that's a lot of footage of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So many drugs too. I mean, again, I feel naive that I'm like, oh, they were doing all of those drugs. Like, yeah, but I don't know why I'm surprised by it, honestly. I shouldn't be. But it's just, I guess because when I think of him, my immediate like connection with him is about 1998. Like that music and everything. Yeah. And with Biggie and everything. So I associate it with like music that I liked and stuff. And like with other musicians that you find out they're huge sacks of shit, I don't listen to his stuff anymore. I hope nobody, no radio station or anybody plays his stuff anymore. I hope people refuse to work with him. I think it's admirable that celebrities like Cat Williams and Jaguar Wright are willing to speak up, because their voices often are more powerful and listened to than just, you know, a sex worker that he raped, you know? I mean, those are accusations as well. So I hope with more people being like, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to spill all the tea I have, that more of that will come out. At the same time, the more that's coming out, the more I'm like, well, everybody fucking sucks, don't they?
Yeah. There's no heroes, it turns out. I mean, I think when you get to a certain level like that, a certain financial level, it's like you made that money dirty, or you're spending that money dirty, or you're participating in dirty stuff with other people. And
damn, that's profound.
I mean,
you're not wrong though. I mean, so many people are saying Beyonce's going to go down, and I'm like, I will have to take a sabbatical. But at the same time, how would you not know certain things that are going on? And that's for anybody.
No, true. I mean, my only thing with Beyonce is she got with Jay-Z when she was young, like 18 young. So then you also wonder, what does anybody have on anybody else as far as like you're never going to leave me. And the general feeling around Diddy was everyone was afraid of him. He was extremely explosive. He will set your car on fire. He'll shoot you in the face. So it is kind of like, well, y'all have your freak off. I'm going to go in this other room over here. And like, oh my God, I can't believe that's going on in the other room, but I'll literally get shot in the face. My car will be burned down and he will ruin my career. So I guess I have to sit here. And then they're going to have to come out. Whatever celebrities that are in that position are going to have to come out. And then the public decides what level are you complicit.
Yeah, he's like Ken Rex McElroy. Like he's just like, I'll just fucking kill you if you stand in my way.
Yeah,
he doesn't care.
No, and like there'll be security guards blocking people from stopping him from beating someone.
God.
Like that's scary. Tiffany Red was like, I stood in the corner on Cassie's 25th birthday while he was in the other corner screaming directly in her face. And she said, I could not get to her because there were 5 security guards around him. Like, what are you going to go try to rush Diddy to get him off your friend? And then you get your ass beat and or shot and or kicked out. Yeah.
And you're, as the victim, relying on bodyguards he's paying for to keep you safe.
They're your captors, which is what the indictment. That's why he was charged with RICO and racketeering.
The racketeering charges are tied to Combs' use of employees within his business empire who helped conceal his illegal activities from law enforcement. Allegedly, these employees facilitated the freak-offs, booking hotel rooms, providing supplies such as baby oil, lighting, and extra linens, and cleaning up afterward. The businesses named in the indictment include Bad Boy Entertainment and other corporate entities such as Combs' clothing line, marketing agency, alcoholic spirits business, and others.
In Lil Rod, who is a rapper who alleges that Diddy raped him as well, in his lawsuit, he details that every person that works for Diddy has a Prada fanny pack that they have to wear that is full of drugs. And that's the drugs that Diddy will be like, give them. And the list in the federal indictment is cocaine, oxycodone, Xanax, MDMA, a hallucinogen called Nexus, GHB, the party drug, and ketamine.
Damn. So you've got 5 huge beefed up guys that have just unfettered access to handing that out to anybody he wants to take it, willingly or not.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's like, you want to take it or it's open your mouth. Diddy said you're going to take one of these. And you're like, what is that? And it's like, he said, don't worry about it. And it's like, okay.
Combs is also accused of recording these freak-off events and threatening to release the footage if victims did not comply with his demands. According to the indictment, the disgraced hip-hop mogul controlled his victims through violence, drugs, and financial dependence. Combs allegedly physically assaulted women and witnesses, causing injuries that took days or weeks to heal. The victims were then forced to stay hidden in hotel rooms until they recovered, preventing them from reporting the abuse.
So he's kidnapping people. I mean, he also separately kidnapped people, like the way that you would think, which is at a gunpoint, get in my car, let's go. But then also, like, you're not leaving.
Held them hostage, In the video that's been making its ways everywhere of him just pummeling Cassie in that hallway, she said she was leaving one of these freak-offs, and he is looks naked with a towel wrapped around his waist, and she is barefoot, just like hauling ass trying to get out of there. And he comes out. I mean, there's evidence like that, and then there's the evidence that he filmed. And I hope a lot more evidence comes out that he didn't know was being filmed at the time.
That would be nice if there were people that felt afraid before, but now that the federal government's involved, they feel like they can come forward, that they're like, I'm just going to keep this as collateral. But you're right. Like that footage from the hotel, like, it shows how I told Paris and I were talking about this. I go, you've never hit me. You've never run after me. You've never attacked me. So if there was footage of you and I getting into a physical altercation, it would be a bit awkward. We don't really know how to fight we don't fight each other, so we don't know how it is. Watching the speed and dexterity with which Sean Combs runs down that hallway, and the way I said you wouldn't know how much force you would have to take to grab me by the back of my head and throw me on the ground. He did that with Cassie like it was the 1,000th time he had done it. And I bet it was the millionth. You can watch the way he beats her. That was not he goes, oh, I'm so sad. I'm so sorry. That was not a one-time deal, man.
I don't think so either.
And the allegation is that was a emblematic, but not isolated of what happened to all the people in his life.
Much of the federal criminal cases seem to have originated from a civil lawsuit filed by his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in November of 2023. According to Combs' defense attorneys, Cassie wrote a tell-all book about her time with Combs and offered to sell him the rights for $30 million. This would allow Combs to keep it from being published. When Combs refused, Cassie filed a civil lawsuit detailing the years of his physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, including rape. Combs settled the lawsuit the next day, allegedly for the full $30 million. His defense attorney has highlighted this exchange as
30 million reasons why.
Cassie is now cooperating with the federal government in its investigation. At the time of the settlement, Combs' attorney, Ben Braffman, stated that settling the lawsuit was
in no way an admission of wrongdoing.
The lawyer emphasized how vehemently his client denied the claims, stating that the settlement was a positive outcome and wishing Cassie well. What?
Yeah.
I mean, $30 million? That's a lot of money to pay when you're not admitting you did anything wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing you think about now is she went to him quietly. None of us would have known about any of this if he would have settled before she filed. But his greedy ass, who's allegedly worth $400 million, refused to. And I think for the video of her getting beaten alone is worth $30 million. I don't want anyone to treat anybody like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have $400 million, I believe you should go to jail and also have all your money taken, which I think is going to happen here. But the fact that he could have, it would be very difficult, I think, for the federal government to complete their investigation or have gotten as far as they have. And for all the other victims, I think lawsuit count, we're at 9 have been filed against Diddy since last November. These other victims that are coming forward, I don't think any of them would be able to do that if not for Cassie's bravery. But also, she wouldn't have even gotten to file if he had written the check in the first place. So it is somewhat satisfying to see a horrible, greedy person undone by not even wanting to make right the just years of terror you inflicted on this woman.
Yeah.
$30 million is chump change, but to go like, no, sue me, see what happens. Well, bitch, you're in jail. So that's what happens.
I think he didn't think she would go through with it. Mm-hmm. I think he thought she would be too scared to, and thought he was calling her bluff, and she said, nah, we're going through it. To settle immediately the day after, like, come on. You have a chance under the table to do it. You call her bluff. She calls I don't know, somebody calls somebody's bluff. It comes out, and then you're like, okay, all right, I'll settle.
You're like, oh shit, I made a huge mistake. This is very bad for me. And you're like, the feds immediately started sniffing around. They're like, that lawsuit says he did what now? I'm sorry, in furtherance of an enterprise, you say? Because not district attorneys, in this case, the U.S. attorney, how you get promoted from like the Southern District of New York to like, I don't know, say like Attorney General of the United States is by huge cases like this. And so I'm sure the feds, when this lawsuit came out, were licking their chops going, who's got jurisdiction? Who's doing this? Can we all work together? Homeland Security's like, they're trafficking how many people? Let's get them.
Especially when it's a huge name like this, too. Just weeks later, 2 more civil lawsuits were filed in New York, accusing Combs of sexual assault, including a December suit in federal court that also included allegations of sex trafficking. Combs' criminal attorney later characterized this as people lining up for checks after seeing how Combs settled the lawsuit with Cassie.
They love using that term.
Yeah.
Payout. They're getting a payout.
Yeah. And it makes it all about money and gets away from the fact that what are the actual charges here? The sex trafficking, rape, sexual assault, kidnapping. And they're like, everybody's just doing it for money. No, none of these people are going to put themselves through the ringer and have to like be publicly scrutinized, have all of this information out there about you. How horrible to go through something like that. Like Cassie, what she's gone through, both with him and then even now, it's hard for me to believe anybody's going to put themselves through something like that for a payout when that's the rest of your life. You've got that attached to you, you know?
And just the scars, like the emotional, physical scars you have from all of that abuse that the people who have filed lawsuits also have evidence of what they've done. And I'm sure now the federal government has evidence that'll help them out real good on all of the shit that they seized. But yeah, it's so disgusting. And like I said, it's one thing to be a zealous advocate for your client and say like, you know, my client's vehemently going to charge these, but you are representing a literal monster. And to frame his victims as some sort of like greedy little piglets coming to get a payday, you're going to hell. You're just going to go to hell for that. You can't like, that's so it's not as bad as what your client's doing, but it's like, hey man, you're kind of only as good as the company you keep. And if you're like really chummy and be like, I love my client, he's great. It's one thing to go, everybody deserves a defense and I am here to vehemently defend him, but not be like, my buddy Sean would never.
I wonder how much that defense attorney is getting paid. It seems like it's all about money with him in every way.
My recommendation would be to cash those checks now before the federal government forfeits all of his assets.
At the time, Combs made a public statement professing his innocence, saying,
I've sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character. Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged.
Do you think there's any feeling of embarrassment for him to look into a camera and say that when he knows what he's done, and he also knows all of the thousands, millions of people that are going to watch it that have been around when he's done these things, know for a fact he's done them? Do you think he's a little bit embarrassed, even a little?
Embarrassed? I don't know if he has the capacity for that, because I think he's more Machiavellian. I'll do anything I want. Just the picture painted of him as this like absolute tyrant who exerts complete control over his world and his loci of like he's always can tell everybody what to do, where to go, what to wear, what to take, how to have sex, in what positions. I think that's why he liked the freak offs, because he wanted to tell a man how to have sex with his girlfriend or whatever. So I think because he wants to control, he's probably gotten, and no, I don't say probably, I think starting with Cassie's lawsuit, starting in November 2023, he started unraveling. And it was just these more like, it's becomes a, how can I maintain this control? And you're like, baby, you lost control. Like it's gone. It's too late. Like it's in the FBI's and HSI's
the
hands.
FBI
like,
is in control now.
Yeah, the Homeland Security's come for you. That's worse than the FBI in a lot of ways. So I think he was just like, I'm still in control. I can tell people and they'll believe me because I'm Diddy and they'll believe. Like, I think it's more delusion versus like any semblance of awareness.
Yeah, maybe embarrassed isn't the right word, but more along the lines of, is he so delusional that he's like, I mean, I can't even begin to think he doesn't know what he's done is illegal and wrong. That's just ridiculous. But you think he just, I don't know. Maybe I'm built different because I would never do something like this, but it would be so embarrassing for me and like uncomfortable and awkward to openly be like, I didn't do any of this, when I know that like hundreds of thousands of people know for sure that I did. I wouldn't be able to show my face again.
No, I think you're right. We're all cut from different cloths than this type, which I think his type is like, I have the resources and the power. I can fix this. And step one is deny everything and then send in all my employees. And if the person won't take the bribe, burn their car down. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, he knows he's got recordings of a bunch of his friends doing fucked up stuff too. So I guess maybe it isn't embarrassing to deny it when the company you keep is doing the same stuff and you're all like, that's what we just do. We just deny it. We're rich.
And you go, if you do it, if you go down, I go. If I go down, you go down.
Just 4 months after Cassie's lawsuit, in March of 2024, authorities from the Department of Homeland Security, the federal agency in charge of investigating sex trafficking, executed search warrants for Combs' residences in Los Angeles and Miami. Footage showed a distraught Combs on the phone, as well as his adult children being held by authorities outside his home.
That was a satisfying day for me to watch those places get raided. I mean, just them coming in on boats and shit. I was like, fuck. Paris goes, is this, at the time, of course, we didn't know any of these allegations. He goes, is this like a normal thing? And I said, well, it is for like Jeffrey Epstein. And so I said, what this tells me is that, because the federal government builds their case and then comes to execute the search warrant. So by the time they show up at your house, you're cooked, my dude. You're cooked.
You're done so.
So I was like, once I saw those speedboats, I was like, oh, he's going to jail for the rest of his life.
It's a bummer that his adult, even if they're adult kids, had to see their dad like that. But I don't think you can hide that kind of stuff. If that's your personality and you're known as this just 24/7 tyrant, that bleeds over into all aspects of your life.
Yeah, and there's a lawsuit alleging that one of his sons, Christian Combs, sexually assaulted this plaintiff and that Diddy was aiding and abetting that sexual assault. So that's kind of gross and concerning too, to go, how involved were your adult children?
Yeah. Oh, that makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
At a recent press conference, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams detailed evidence seized from Combs's properties in the searches, including digital video footage obtained from security systems, cameras, laptops, and phones. Other seized items included a 52-round high-capacity drum, 3 AR-15s with their serial numbers removed, over 90 cell phones, cloud accounts, computers, and more than 3 dozen digital devices like thumb drives and security systems. Additionally, over 1,000 bottles of personal lubricant were found, allegedly used in the freak-offs.
This is quite a haul for HSI. I mean, this is exactly what they're looking for, right? To go, oh, you have the materials that you're going to sex traffic and rape people with, the evidence that you did it because you filmed it and recorded yourself, and the weapons that you use to keep people compliant.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the pieces.
TikTok has no shortage of jokes to make about all this lube. Man, it's that's a lot of lube. And that's just the ones that were found. And like, he was taking shit out of that house before they showed up because I think he knew shit was coming. So that's so much lube.
So much. And it was lube and baby oil. He really liked baby oil as well, which I did not learn until someone was talking about reading a memoir of a Playboy playmate who said that Hugh Hefner really liked baby oil. And you should not, PSA, I do not use baby oil as personal lubricant because it is prone to causing infections, specifically vaginal infections. It can cause anal infections, but that this playmate said, oh, well, he insisted on it. Even when we switched out the liquid from baby oil to lube so it would be safer for us so we would not get these infections, he'd be like, I can tell the difference. I don't like this. And so to think that I can imagine if, you know, you're subjected to a freak off and you're like, oh, could you actually please use like a water-based lube because baby oil causes infections? You're not going to be able to make those kind of, and that's a very small thing, but I think it's very emblematic to be like, this was not his lawyer's like, it's all adults. Everyone was consenting. I don't think that's true. And I think having that much baby oil and it's like, you're not a woman. So we can tell you it's fucking terrible. Don't use it.
Yeah. I don't think most of this stuff was consensual at all.
No, and that keeps, especially you're like, why have my ARs with the serial numbers rubbed off? You know, because everyone's just friends having fun. Yeah.
Or you're a male sex worker getting paid, I don't know, $500,000 to do the some stuff you aren't comfortable with, but that's like sets you up for several years. In May of 2024, a video of Combs attacking Cassie at the now closed Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles surfaced. In the footage from 2016, a shirtless Combs is shown clutching a bath towel around himself as he chases Cassie through the hotel hallway, grabbing her by the hair, slamming her down, and kicking her. He later apologized in a now deleted Instagram video, calling his behavior
inexcusable.
Cassie claimed she was fleeing a freak-off. Combs' attorneys framed the incident as two
mutual philanderers
in a jealous fight over Combs' multiple sex partners.
The defense is that right before this video, that in the room, she threw a cell phone at his head, which, if true, doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter. A fuck. No, and I wouldn't say this was a fight. I would say this was an attack because fight implies two people are fighting each other. She was laying on the ground in the fetal position, cowering, while he beat the shit out of her. So you get a cell phone thrown at your head. Okay, that does suck, but it in no way allows you to do what he did directly after that. And I would also, if I was a betting woman, say she didn't throw that cell phone because she probably knew exactly what would happen if she did.
There's no way. And especially he's like, comes out naked. I was like, you were in the middle of something, dude.
Oh, yeah.
She just got her bag and her head down's trying to go for it. But yeah, for the attorneys to go, well, she found out he was cheating. Found out, obviously, he was cheating constantly. And then she hit him with a cell phone. I'm like, well, if you told me that in the room, he threw the cell phone back at her, again, not cool. But that is at least a equal and opposite reaction. But if a thrown, it's like, hey, my little brother pinched me, and it's like, and then I threw him down a well. It's like, that's not, oh my God, you can't do that. It has to, no, under the law, it has to be like an even, just enough to get the person away from you, not, oh, well, now it's my turn. That's not how that works. So that was a very stupid thing, in my opinion, for his attorneys to say.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing, like you said, to frame it that way. Like, we all saw the footage, you fuck. Like, we saw it. To be like, they were just having a spat.
And even to say, well, she threw a cell phone, that almost makes it worse. It's like, so you, a grown man, a gazillionaire, beat the shit out of your girlfriend because she threw a cell phone at you? That's the type of person you are?
You're a million years older than her. You're like not like super old, but as far as like, you're like 25 years older than your girlfriend. But yeah, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining and be like, oh, they were just having a little spat. Nah.
No, I think she had been subjected to these freak offs for so long and was forced to do so many things that she did not consent to, and maybe saw like, oh, maybe I can get out real quick, and made a run for it, and it didn't work.
Yeah, because it said that she signed with Bad Boy in 2005, and then 2015 was her 25th birthday. So then I was like, wait a minute,
do that math. So she was 15 when she signed? Interesting. Bieber was about that age too when Diddy took an interest in him.
Yeah, and the other civil lawsuits, the Lil Rod one said that at incidents where he was assaulted, that there were people around the age of 15, 16 were there.
After Cassie's lawsuit became public, the government alleges that Combs and his associates began intimidating and bribing potential witnesses. In phone calls Combs recorded himself, witnesses were fed false narratives to protect his reputation and conceal his criminal acts. The government claims to have obtained recordings of Combs making at least 2 such calls. Well, when the government has it, then you're fucked.
Especially that you made it, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Because you think you're untouchable. He's gotten away with it for decades. I'm also just going to go out ahead and say it. I think he's the one that was behind Biggie and Tupac getting killed. So he's been doing shit like this since he came up in the industry. He thinks he's untouchable, that he's just this god.
No, yeah. Once you kill Biggie and then make a song singing with his widow about it, and you literally did a crime in plain sight, certainly you'd feel like you were untouchable. Yeah, absolutely. He's like Al Capone style.
Yeah. The government asserts that one of the purposes of Combs's criminal enterprise was to preserve, protect, promote, and enhance his power, reputation, and brand. As part of this, employees allegedly bribed witnesses to keep quiet about his many crimes, including a hotel worker who saw Combs's attack on Cassie in 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel. Combs allegedly offered the worker a large amount of cash to stay silent and hide the footage, later sending his employees to ensure the hotel's compliance. The video stayed hidden until CNN released it in May of 2024. Combs's attorney commented in a September hearing, saying,
"Who knows how that video got out?"
and suggested it was only released because it was a slow news day. I would say this is breaking news. So where even if you got a fast news day, something like this comes out, you're breaking in because this is, I mean, he's globally known. He's a huge celebrity. All this shit comes out. It's a big deal.
That is the news. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Like, but to say it in such a dismissive way, again, it's like, oh, well, they were all just bored. So that's why they released the video. And it's like, no, it is because we all need to know as a society that this person is a monster.
Yeah. Stop giving him money. Stop doing business with them. As fans, stop being a fan. How do you think the video got out?
I don't think that you would delete something like that.
No, I bet you hold on to that.
I would keep it for an opportune moment, because then you kind of double dip, because you're like, I got the money from him and then I can also help him go to jail. So I win twice. Sorry, Cassie, for the 2016, from 2016 to 2023, it was not released, but it's like better late than never, and at least it exists somewhere. But that's kind of this whole argument, is that like the core of the business was to protect his reputation, that's what the government's alleging, that these crimes were committed in furtherance of the purpose. And the purpose doesn't have to be illegal, but you did crimes to further the purpose. And the purpose was to protect his rep. And so the attorney's always like, yeah, we're just trying to clean up messes. What do you want us to do? I'm like, stop admitting that your client's doing exactly what he's accused of. Please stop saying that. I mean, please keep saying that so we can send him to jail.
Right. I wonder if the feds showed up at Hotel Intercontinental, and at that point they were like, okay, yeah, we're turning this over. When Diddy shows up with his crew and they're like, here's, a couple million to keep this quiet. The person working the front desk probably takes it and is like, all right, I'm going to hold on to it though. Mm-hmm. And then the feds showing up and saying, hey, we know you've got that. It becomes a different story of you saying, I don't know what you're talking about, because you can't do that with the feds.
No, I think CNN is the one that released it, and it was like that's what it's like. CNN obtains this exclusive from source, so good for the person. Also, like, keep that money and stay anonymous.
Combs faces 3 federal criminal charges: racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and interstate transportation for prostitution. A grand jury investigation involving over 300 subpoenas for documents and witnesses led to his indictment, which was handed down on September 16th and unsealed the following day after Combs was arrested at a Manhattan hotel.
Just see him walking through the lobby and they run up on either side of him and arrest his ass.
And a few hours before that, he's sitting in a fucking park, just chilling on a blanket.
Just like, what a day. And you're like, well, yeah, enjoy the fresh air, buddy. It's the last time you're going to have it before there's like bars around you or razor wire that you can't get over.
Yeah, I don't know why you just don't go turn yourself in. Because why would you want the footage of you as a celebrity getting arrested? And that seems embarrassing.
He desperately tried to turn himself in, and the feds were like, la, 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 we can't hear anything, because they, I think they wanted to have even more reason to hold him over for detention. And if you turn yourself in, you can argue which his attorneys tried to argue, like, oh, look, my client's so cooperative. But instead, he's like in New York, and the feds are like, okay, be in New York. That'll make our job easier. But please don't come to our office. We'll find you. Don't call us. We'll call you.
Might also want to make a spectacle of it, to send a message. And also, I think there's something to be said about a monster like this being publicly arrested versus turning themselves in. They should be embarrassed. It should be a national thing. I hope every news person there was there to catch it. If
the charges are true, why do we want any sex trafficker or anybody to have like a nice, easy way to turn themselves in?
No.
Why do you get that? You were never easy to anybody your entire life. You treated every single person like a pawn in this giant chess game that you could just set fire to or throw away at any chance. So why is his attorney suddenly like, well, it's just, why wouldn't they let him turn himself in? How rude of them. And I'm like, really? This is like calling everybody that's suing him for rape just looking for a payday. Like, you're really framing this the wrong way.
At a press conference, ABC News asked U.S. Attorney Williams why the investigation took so long if Combs' actions were so brazen. Williams responded,
I can't tell you why it took so long,
but emphasized that his office was now fully engaged and that the investigation was ongoing. Outside the courthouse, Combs' defense attorney told reporters,
Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this till the end.
He criticized his client's arrest, noting that Combs had intended to turn himself in, but authorities chose to arrest him at a hotel, likely to secure his detention before trial. The attorney insisted Combs was innocent and characterized his relationship with Cassie as consensual.
His whole thing is like, they both cheated on each other. It was just a wild case. I'm like, if your client, there's like footage of him beating this woman, do not go in the street and be like, he's a fighter.
Yeah.
He's a fighter.
Oh, yeah.
Stop using
That's
that word.
bad.
Stop. It really hits the ears.
Not a good look. In a letter to the court, the U.S. Attorney's Office requested Combs be held in detention pending trial, calling him
a serial abuser and a serial obstructor. He's in extreme danger and presents a serious risk of obstruction and flight.
The letter and subsequent oral arguments at the September 19th detention hearing detailed incidents in which Combs or his employees bribed and threatened witnesses, including one case where a man was kidnapped at gunpoint. The government referenced allegations from Cassie's lawsuit, such as the claim that Combs set fire to American rapper Kid Cudi's car by throwing a Molotov cocktail inside, later bragging about it. The government further alleged that Combs called other victims of his sexual abuse after Cassie's lawsuit became public, pressuring them to claim the abuse was consensual and offering his support in return for their loyalty. He assured one victim if she
needed
him that she
ain't got to worry about nothing else.
Asking for support and
friendship.
He also contacted witnesses who received grand jury subpoenas after learning about the criminal investigation against him in attempts to pressure them as well.
And he recorded himself doing a lot of it. So they have plenty of evidence to go, we got to keep him in jail because we need to be able to record all of his phone calls because he's probably going to call more people and be like, hey, if they ask you to testify, make sure you say this or make sure, plus I think all of his underlings that were helping him carry these things out, that means anytime he interacts with them, that's all going to be captured and the feds are like, we're listening.
Yeah. And I don't really know who the bodyguards and all that are, but I imagine you're shitting your pants and destroying documents, trying to protect your own ass.
You're like, I'd like to be a whistleball. Hello.
Yeah. That's really your only way out of this is to flip and to turn on him. I mean, that's I think your best bet.
And unless you can show, okay, well, and then in these situations when I did this, I couldn't leave. I was held at gunpoint. He had information about my family. And that's fair. If there are people the ones that are his maids that had to come in and clean up after the freak off that just are like, oh, I guess a bunch of people fucked in here. Didn't think or know something horrible happened. I hope people like that don't get scooped up in it that are just like, I just had to, I didn't know what was going on. But the ones that were like, oh, yes, I stood there while he beat the shit out of this woman and I made sure no one could stop him. I hope they all go to jail, too. Federal jail for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
Like an Al Capone henchman.
During a 2-hour detention hearing, authorities likened Combs' case to other high-profile sex trafficking cases like Jeffrey Epstein, R. Kelly, and NXIVM founder Keith Raniere. Combs' defense argued for house arrest with electronic monitoring, differentiating this case from those of Epstein and others by emphasizing that the individuals involved with Combs were adults and that the acts were consensual. The defense also pointed out that Combs had voluntarily traveled to New York in anticipation of the indictment and voluntarily surrendered his passport to his attorney.
Well, I would disagree. It's different than Epstein and R. Kelly because he is alleged of abusing 15, 16-year-old girls, which are the same. And he's exactly the same as Keith Raniere, which is it wasn't like a formal structure, but he would continuously tell people, oh, these women will do anything I want because I'm the king of the industry and they all really want this. So he would get them initially on this feeling of I'm going to make it, right? Maybe I can be the next singer or the next movie star. Well, all it takes is one freak off. And now he's got footage of you doing horrible stuff. And if you're both being threatened career-wise and now with this incriminating footage, it's very much like Keith Raniere, who would be like, I'm going to send a letter to your family telling them you did all this sex stuff with me. And so these women are terrified and then are forced to comply. So I think his attorney is going, he's totally different from these people whose facts of their cases are exactly the same. Again, you sound like an idiot.
I think he's exactly like Epstein and all of those men are huge sacks of shit that all share similar qualities and they've all done similar crimes.
Yeah, for sure. And federal sex trafficking charges, there is a presumption of detention until trial that the defense has to rebut. So it's a rebuttable presumption, but we just assumed we're going to keep you. Why should we not keep you? And it's I gave my passport and I came to New York. They're like, that's not enough. No. Because up until literally 2 seconds before we arrested you, you were calling witnesses to be like, don't say anything. Don't say anything. So we know the second we let you out, you're going to go back and intimidate the many thousands of sex trafficking victims.
Yeah.
And say, don't say anything. Don't say it. So no, bitch, we're keeping you. So
or flee the country.
Weak. Yeah, that's the other thing. He goes, well, I was trying to sell my jet. Okay, that means you can't, there's no other way for you to fly out of the country. And also, I was trying to means you haven't sold it yet. So the market's not great for jets. But to just use that as these arguments, it just shows how very flimsy they are and why they didn't work, I think.
Despite these arguments, the judge ruled that Combs would remain in jail pending trial. On September 20th, NBC News reported that he was placed under suicide watch in federal custody in New York City. He is being monitored closely by guards at the Metropolitan Detention Center, Brooklyn, a federal facility currently under scrutiny after rampant inmate violence and mistreatment. A source familiar with the situation told NBC News that Combs' suicide watch is
procedural with high-profile clients. Well,
I don't know. Is it? I think it. You always hear about. I think it is, but I think there's also good reason to have him, just like with Epstein, for a couple reasons. You might want to make sure he's not going to do anything to himself. You might want to make sure nobody else is going to do something to him.
Nobody on any of those freak off videos is going to do anything. No, it's my understanding he's in a 20-person special unit that Sam Bankman-Fried, who is the former cryptocurrency scammer who did, if not the biggest like financial scam in our history, a really, really big recent one, he's only like 20,
I saw that documentary.
30. Oh, yeah. So he's in there.
That's wild.
Sam Bankman-Fried is in there with Diddy.
Wow.
Yeah. What a weird, I don't know that they're like roommates, but I think if there's only 20 people, it seems like it's like pretty small. But that detention center is the one that Epstein was in was the Manhattan one. And that was a bad one. And I believe that's temporarily closed because, again, it was just this like horrible environment. And inmates at MDC Brooklyn were like not getting cancer treatments. One inmate was very viciously attacked and stabbed something like 40 times. They were like not feeding them well. I think there's been reports that he's refusing food or he doesn't like the food, which is fair. It's federal prison food. It's probably not great, but it's particularly not the nicest. He's not in like a Club Med, like nice minimum security jail. No.
And he shouldn't be. Combs faces a minimum of 15 years for the sex trafficking charge and up to life for the racketeering charge. The third charge, interstate transportation for prostitution, carries a maximum of 10 years. It's interesting that the sex trafficking carries a lesser sentence than racketeering.
I think probably because to build a racketeering case, you have to prove like a ton of crimes. And sex trafficking is one of the crimes that's kind of under this like racketeering, that they utilize this enterprise for that purpose, which I think is why it hasn't been like local New York or local California or local Florida authorities going after him for rape, on a one-off rape charge. I think it's easier, which sounds horrible because that means he would have had to do so much crime that it has made it a more straightforward route for a conviction to utilize this RICO statute to say you were using Bad Boy Entertainment as not a record label, but like a mafia sort of front, like for you to just snap your fingers and like people will disappear.
Yeah.
People just go away.
I am going to be on the edge of my seat during this trial when I think so much is going to come out about Bad Boy and shit that was going on back then. I think this could be a case that takes down a ton of people in the industry.
I think you're right that it could change the face of entertainment as we know it, especially given we see so many artists now that don't need that. Like he's old, like, and I don't mean like his age is 54. That's old. I mean, like he's a dinosaur insofar as the control that he exerted for so long. And I think that's why now is the time for the facade to crack, that there's so many other avenues for people to be famous or known for their art that it doesn't, sadly in 2005, you did have to do what Cassie did. You know what I mean? Like go to a party, hobnob, do what it takes or whatever. But I mean, you didn't have to, but that was the type of gatekeepers that were around. And now you see like a Chappell Roan, she said in an interview recently, she was like, fuck H&M. I'm not doing that. Like, she's just very openly like, I've made myself on my own. Like, I'm not beholden to anybody over me. And so hopefully we're moving to a world where there are way more independent artists. And I think you're right. It's going to take titans falling because we're like, this shit's been corrupt.
It's going to be interesting to see who all gets brought into this and if they're held to the same accountability, and maybe not the same, but some, because the stuff that is out there about Jay-Z is real upsetting. Both of them were thick as thieves and allegedly had underage mistresses that they had all the time and had very sexual relationships with. So I always wonder, what was that fight about on that elevator?
Right. Like, what did you know or see or, And that's the question is like, what the tangential people were like, if Jay-Z was doing this and Beyonce is married to him, it's kind of Erica Jane, Tom Girardi, right? Was it just like, you're going to go party with Diddy all weekend and I don't want to know what you do? And do we go, that's acceptable. We still like her. And that's just a choice I think everybody's got to make.
Yeah.
Or it may come out that she's like, you don't know what it's been like. I have been under this man's thumb since I was 18 years old, and I have been waiting for him to die. And the next best thing is he's going to federal prison too. I would love to tell you all what my life's been like.
Truly. I saw a really old, it wasn't even an interview. It was her talking selfie style, but it was back like when she was first coming up, and she just looks miserable and her eyes are red and they're darting all around while she's talking. And you're like, who's around in this room right now? And she's saying like, it's so overwhelming to think like, why do I have this talent? Why did God give me this life and everything? But it's being said in a way where you're like, are you happy about this? It seems like what, and it was 18 when their relationship went public, I think.
Yeah, when it's quote started.
Yeah.
But no.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I
hate to see it.
Somebody said, I was watching a TikTok and one of the comments was like, the last time she really seemed to be happy, and they referenced a certain time and said, and it was shortly after that her whole Sasha Fierce persona started to be developed. Oh. And it made me wonder, is that a coping mechanism? Like you do have to create characters sometimes to get through stuff.
Man, to be like, he's not doing that like, she's not doing that for an artistic purpose. She's doing that for a self-protection purpose. Like, Perhaps. He's not hitting me. He's hitting Sasha Fierce. Or like, when he hits me, this is all speculation. I don't know that any of that's happened, but it is concerning when a person is as close to a now alleged major. This isn't a couple of incidents and maybe Diddy hit his girlfriend once or twice. It is at least they're reaching back to 2015. I am more likely thinking it's all the way back to the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
That he's been doing these things. He's just going to get convicted on the things in the past 10 years under the RICO statute. But like, when you're like thickest, like you said, thickest these best friends, you're in all these pictures together. There are so many people, I think, that are going to come forward to save their own hides, as they, hopefully can if they were coerced into participating in this, that are going to go, well, I have some stuff on other people too, if that would help.
Ooh, yeah.
Because it's like, well, we got Combs dead to rights. Like, we don't really need you to help us. It's like, well, would it help to know about insert name of politician, insert name of other celebrity, insert name, da-da-da.
I'm real interested to see how the Kardashians are going to play this.
That's there's been a lot of footage because, again, these Kardashians love to name drop. So there'll be episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians from years ago where they're like, I was there this weekend. Diddy showed up.
Oh, and so many photos of them at the white parties or just like selfies hanging out,
So I think we'll see how that develops for sure.
In addition to jail time, Combs faces potential forfeiture of his personal property and ownership of all businesses involved in the case. The indictment's forfeiture language extends to any proceeds from his ventures, meaning that any purchases made with bad boy funds could also be subject to government seizure. Forbes estimate Combs' net worth at around $400 million. His next court appearance is scheduled for October 9th.
I think he's gonna lose all that. The listing that they did in the indictment was so broad and far-reaching that it, in my opinion, the language would apply to every penny that's come through the bad boy door for the past 10 years.
Well, when you're in prison, you don't need a bunch of money, so that's good, at least for him. It's good, and I hope it all goes to the victims. I was gonna
say, put it in some fund and distribute it to the victims for sure.
Attorneys for the Southern District of New York emphasize that the investigation is ongoing and that additional charges may be filed against Combs and others. Authorities are urging anyone with information or who believe they are a victim to contact Homeland Security Investigations at 1-877-4HSI-TIP. So what do we think?
I really hope this is just the initial thread, like just the beginning, and all of the people that have been victimized, not just the 9 people or 8 other people besides Cassie too, who have filed civil lawsuits so far. I hope that they are now comfortable to come forward, including the witnesses that he called and intimidated since May when they knew that the grand jury was convened and, was panic calling everybody or whatever. I hope that all of those folks feel comfortable to come out if they want to share their story, at least to the extent of sharing it with HSI to help, just make sure that he can't get out, because there's too much recorded evidence that he is they called him a serial abuser and a serial obstructor. So it's not just that he's going to go out and commit crimes, is that he's using this vast fortune and all these businesses and all these little helpers to perpetrate heinous sex crimes and other crimes too. I mean, like I said, kidnapping, beating, murder. Yeah, there's allegations that maybe his wife, ex-wife, Kim Porter, who died in 2018, he perhaps had something to do. She died of a pneumonia. But her other ex besides Diddy, I'll Be Sure, has come out on Instagram and said, this was a tragic murder. I think he had something to do with it. I think she had 3 kids with Diddy and then 1 with I'll Be Sure. So for him, he's got an interest in that he loved this woman and it's the mother of his child, that this person should be held liable for everything. So I hope in this RICO investigation is just the beginning, that they'll lock him down kind of Murdoch style. Like, we locked you down for the financial crimes. And now also these are the people that we know you've murdered. And those out there who are willing to talk to Cat Williams or Jaguar Wright or whoever they're willing to tell their story to are also willing to come forward to HSI. And what HSI is, they're the sex trafficking arm of the government. They're not going to hold him responsible for murder, but they're going to call the authorities in whatever jurisdiction, Miami, I think it was Toluca Lake. So the California authorities, and go, hey, we've got a witness you might want to talk to about what happened to Kim Porter in 2018, because there's no statute of limitations on murder.
Yep. I would talk to people about Tupac and Biggie as well. There's a lot, Kim Porter and also Jay-Z's girlfriend who got pregnant, was about to announce that she was pregnant, and then
disappeared.
Somehow the next day died of an aneurysm, which another woman that suddenly died of an aneurysm that was connected to Diddy. There's a lot of aneurysms that occur unexpectedly.
And I wonder, there are employees walking around with fanny packs full of drugs. If one of the many, many drugs he's alleged to have frequently used or had could cause the symptoms that have caused these deaths. But I think at this point, they are, like I said, when Homeland Security is involved, they're looking under every corner. So I don't think anything is going to get prosecuted, as it just might take time. I think this is their focus now, is to get him in federal jail and then be like, he can't get out. We'll still go and charge him in all these states.
I hope that this is the beginning of the downfall of a lot of people in this industry that have been doing shit like this for way longer than I thought. I feel like I've been woken up to just it really becomes at a certain level of fame and money that you get involved in these parties and inner circles that are just fucking eyes wide shut shit. And then I think, for example, people like the Kardashians, you just turn a blind eye. It's kind of part of being rich and famous, and you're a billionaire and you're like, yeah, that's just part of the thing. We don't rat on each other because we all do illegal stuff. So we just kind of all keep our mouths shut because we don't want to lose our money and power and fame.
Right. It's well, just don't open the doors at the Diddy party. You don't know what you're going to see, and you don't want to see what that is. And it's well, what kind of a sick career have you built for yourself that it is built on that? And then you do feel bad for somebody like Justin Bieber, who I don't think went in I'm going to climb to the top. I think he was a talented kid, and someone goes, hey, wouldn't your dream? And which is exactly what Sean Combs preyed upon. And that the phrase he used over and over was they want this life and I've got the keys to the castle, and they, meaning men, women, children, are going to do anything I want them to do to essentially comply. And so I hope in his own time, Bieber can heal from that and maybe, come forward. I know it would probably help a ton of other victims of sexual abuse, to have a high profile person like that to go, whatever happened to him, to go, this happened to me. But it's also, that's a private thing that you choose when you want to reveal that. And I hope he's just able to have at least peace knowing that his kid is safe and he's safe, because the psycho that did all that to him is behind federal bars.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely be talking about this more when the trial begins. And
Unfortunately,
probably
it won't be
what?
televised. It won't be televised,
Oh,
unfortunately.
you don't think it is? Or
No,
they've already said?
Yeah, it's federal.
Oh, federal trials are never televised?
Mm-mm.
What's the difference?
Just the laws, the rules. I don't know. So it's states. I did a survey of this and like researched it a couple years ago, just like why are some filmed and why aren't. But it is, as a general rule, there is not any cameras in federal proceedings. So.
Well, then I guess you'll have 1,000 news reporters on the courthouse steps just waiting for information and going live immediately. And we will be tuned in.
Yes.
Well, as we have been wrapping this up recording, unfortunately, some very horribly sad news has come in on a case that we have covered in the past.
Yes. If you all have been following, I'm sorry.
If you guys have been following the Marcellus Williams case.
Yeah, it was the murder of Felicia Gale in Missouri, which we covered. And there was jailhouse informants. There was inequitable things with jury selection. There's now credible DNA evidence. And despite everybody's pleas, thank you to everybody who's emailed or tried to call Governor Parsons or anything like that.
Sign the petition.
Yeah, there's like 1.4 million people signed the petition. The very last ditch effort was the Supreme Court and our heinous, devilish, horrible Supreme Court denied a stay of execution and denied to grant review to Marcellus Williams, which allowed his execution, which was scheduled for as we are recording right now. So I got a push notification, which is why the tone of the episode changed very quickly, is because I was hoping against hope. I was thinking, man, wouldn't that be great at the end of the episode if right before we finish recording, the Supreme Court granted a stay of execution and we would have a great update. But unfortunately, we do not. His last statement was tweeted out by the Innocence Project, and he just said, "All praise be to Allah in every situation." And well, it's really hard as an attorney and a person, who cares about the justice system and loves to demystify it and explain it and stuff. I was talking to our friend Victoria yesterday, and I just said, like, I don't have an answer, man. Like, it's where you go, wait a minute. So we all know. We don't know for sure he did this. Correct. We all think maybe he didn't do it. In fact, correct. The prosecuting office said this was not fair. He deserves at least another trial, if not to be declared innocent. Correct. The victim's family has said, we're totally fine with him taking an Alford plea and pleading to life in prison. Please don't kill him. And yet still, Governor Parsons of the state of Missouri has blood on his hands, and the U.S. Supreme Court has blood on their hands, and the Missouri Supreme Court has blood on their hands to look this family in the eye and go, you're the victim's family. We don't care what you think. We're going to kill him because it's faster, because we don't care.
Yeah, truly. I'm reading an update right now. It said the court offered no explanation for its decision, which is common for cases on its emergency docket. So that makes no fucking sense. You're going to just be like, no, but then also offer no notes on why you made that decision.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, I hate to say things like that. If like, I don't have an answer. As we're still talking, I don't have confirmation that the execution is complete, but that seems to be what is on the agenda. So,
well, Mike Parson and Brett Kavanaugh can both just rot in hell for the rest of their lives, as well as most of the people on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, a big chunk of the Supreme Court, including Clarence Thomas, who in a decision a few years ago said, oh, deciding if someone's innocent or not before we execute him takes a long time, use a lot of resources. Why bother? Why bother, Clarence Thomas? Why bother indeed? So
the fact that man is still even in the justice system all these decades later, when he has been doing shit that is illegal and
corrupt,
sexual assault and corrupt and all harassment since I was in middle school.
Yeah.
I remember the whole like pube on the Coke can thing being a big joke because, no one took shit seriously back then. Now, of course, you're like, what? But the fact that person is still making decisions is, I also don't have answers. It's very defeating. It's really takes the wind out of any sails of believing in the justice system when something like this happens. It's very hard to continue to have hope. And we say that as two people that never had the pleasure of meeting him, but imagine his family and how they're feeling. And even the victim's family, who's also said, we don't want this to happen.
No. And so they know, like, Missouri, it's scary that we live in a country where it is legal for the government to kill an innocent person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that it brings up an even wider conversation of should the government be allowed to kill anybody, whether they are guilty or not. You know,
can we ever be sure as death? You know what I mean?
Right. No.
That sure. And is that the purpose of our criminal justice system? So rest in peace, Marcellus Williams.
Well, it has been reported officially by CNN that at 7:18 Eastern time, the state of Missouri executed Marcellus Williams by lethal injection. It also says Justices Sotomayor and Jackson and Kagan would have stayed the execution.
Of course they would have.
Yeah.
His attorney, Tricia Rojo Bushnell, said, "This is not justice, and we must all question any system that would allow this to occur. The execution of an innocent person is the most extreme manifestation of Missouri's obsession with finality over truth, justice, and humanity at any cost. Khalifa," which is what his friends called him, "is a kind and thoughtful man who spent his last year supporting those around him in his role as imam. He's known for he will be remembered for his deeply evocative poetry and his service to his family and his community. The world will be a worse place without him. As dark as today is, we owe it to Khalifa to build a brighter future. We are thankful for the prosecuting attorney for his commitment to truth and justice and all he did to try to prevent this unspeakable wrong, and for the millions of people who signed petitions, made calls, and shared Khalifa's story. Tonight, we all bear witness to Missouri's grotesque exercise of state power. Let it not be in vain. This should never happen, and we must not let it continue."
It's crazy that it's 2024 and these types of things are still happening. And I would say now more than ever, you have to vote.
Yeah, we got to do something. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry that the system's like this, but here's the thing. It doesn't have to be. So things like this, the horrible pain that we feel, like you said, we don't know this person, but I care. We care about these things. We care about when this happens. And to the extent we all care, we have to take that care and put it somewhere and not just what we're doing now. I think is a healthy thing. You can feel that emotion, but then say, what action is this going to spur me to? And I've got a big, long list in my head.
Yes.
And I wish I was in Missouri to go knock on Governor Parsons' door.
Right. Think about who you're putting in office. That is everything from the presidential race all the way down to your own city council. It all trickles down. So someone that cares about human rights is not going to allow shit like this to happen. And we need someone in charge of our country that falls under that.
I agree. And like the Wesley Bell, I think is his name, the district attorney in this case was like doing everything he could, begging and everything. And you really see that matters, but not enough. You know, it's got to go all the way up to the top. So,
and really the hardest part really is like, but why? Who did this serve? Who you have the victim's family even saying, we don't even think he did this. And we certainly don't want him to die. Like, who is it helping by doing this when you could just as easily say, we should take another look at the evidence. At the very least, he deserves another trial. Does that cost money? Sure, but so does having him on death row for the past however many fucking decades it's been, as well as executing him. So if you're spending the money either way, shouldn't it be to help exonerate someone and prove their innocence rather than put them to death when not only did he not do this, but it's like egregious. Like the evidence is there's straight up DNA that he did not do this. And not only are you killing an innocent man, but you've got a murderer on the street that had got away with it.
Yeah. And like you said, it's this, we're all now part of this system that we go, well, that's just how it works. Sometimes you kill the wrong one. And it's like, no, we don't have to live like that anymore.
No.
So I'm sorry we don't have any better news for all of you, better answers for all of you. But all we can do is, like I said, we won't forget him. We'll remember his name, and we will certainly forget how this made us all feel, and also how we got here, and how hopefully we can prevent things like this from happening in the future. But I think those in charge who, in the face of evidence to the contrary, and especially the egregiously offensive thing to me, is against the wishes of the victim's family.
Yeah.
That is what offends me the most. That you, Governor Parsons, the Missouri Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court of the United States are murderers today. They are murderers today for what they've done. And again, it's not serving justice, because the family and the prosecutor have both said this is not the right answer.
No.
And it would save everybody a lot of time and money. There was an offered plea on the table. This was a senseless act of purposeful violence and murder, and they wanted to do it. They wanted to kill him. Why? Ask yourself why. I don't know, but ask yourself why, and ask yourself if you want to be governed by people who want to kill someone, because it's scary that they have that authority. It's very scary. But
I couldn't agree more, and couldn't add anything on to that. So
certainly. Thank you all for
it was already rough talking about Diddy, and then this, but it just kind of happened. So in real time, y'all got to see this unfold. And for those that are feeling the way that we're feeling, big hugs. And like Heather said, ask yourself, what can I do? Even if it's something small, what can you do to help prevent this? Because if we all do something, then maybe it happens.
Yeah. And a shout out to all the people that showed up to the Missouri governor's mansion today. I believe over 1 million petitions were turned in. So again, it's eerie to think that we have elected officials who should be beholden to us when you have a digital petition that has 1.4 million signatures. And then you physically have constituents looking you in the face saying, we disagree with this. Please don't do this in our name, because we're the people. The people are executing him. You're now you're murdering someone in our name. We don't like this. So to have a governor, an elected official, look you in the face and go, I don't care what you want, I'm going to kill him anyway, is psychotic and disturbing.
Really?
And should not be the way that anyone faces their last moments, being toyed with.
No.
Like he was at all. And bless all the people, his attorneys. That's what I was telling Paris today. I was like, the lawyers that work on this, they're not just lawyers, man. Like,
oh, the lawyers at the Innocence Project are heroes.
Certainly.
I'm sure they're just beside themselves. But
rest in peace.
That's a really good point, that it's psychotic to have everyone saying he didn't do this, including the victim's family. And then they're like, oh, just rubbing their fingers together. Like, like an evil villain. Like, well, because it really does beg the question, like, but why?
Who are you doing it for?
And if the answer isn't because he was a black man and we didn't like him, then what is the answer?
Yeah, because it's not, overwhelmingly voters in Missouri who I represent, who are my constituents, really want this execution to go through. It's the opposite.
It's psychotic too, that you can have thousands of people outside your office essentially, and protest it. Yeah, and they're just like, well, get the needle. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's eerie. And his
it's
mailbox
eerie. It's very eerie. Straight up terrifying.
It really isn't. It's like dystopian. His phone mailbox has been full or whatever. He's not answering emails. The emails bounce. But I've tried to email multiple times, DMing. The show is DM, tagging himself, whatever. And it's just, it's so creepy to have a leader. And I'm not talking shit only about Missouri. It's just about Missouri today. It could easily be us. It could easily be a lot of other states. But it is very eerie to have a leader who ostensibly plugs their ears to the will of the people.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't because you want to build a new, insert commercial thing here. It is to kill a human.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. And it's something we all have to grapple with in our own ways, and how we've all been complicit in our own ways, and what we're going to do to change it. But it does not bring back Marcellus Williams to his children, to his family, to his friends and loved ones and attorneys. I would just point your attention to the NAACP, who said tonight Missouri lynched another innocent Black man. Governor Parson had the responsibility to save this innocent life, and he didn't. The NAACP was founded in 1909 in response to the barbaric lynching of Black people in America. We were founded exactly because of people like Governor Parson who perpetuate violence against innocent Black people. We will hold Governor Parson accountable. When DNA evidence proves innocence, capital punishment is not justice, it is murder.
Well, I couldn't say anything better myself, so I think that is a good note to end on.
This episode of Sinisterhood is made possible with the help of our amazing patrons.
If you're interested in supporting the show, consider joining our Patreon. You'll get access to ad-free regular episodes, weekly bonus content, you're able to vote on episode topics, join our monthly live streams, and more.
Keep it creepy.
Mwahaha.